Hello, Davina.
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on the Everyday Mystic. You're one of my favorite people that I met in my time in Austin. I'm so happy to
Mm,
connect with you again.
so grateful.
Awesome. Yeah, we met at like a woman's event party. Um,
Yeah.
and there was such a powerful, and there is, I mean, still is. You're there's still there. So many people are still there. I think there's been like tricklings of people moving out, definitely more people
Mhm.
moving in, and
Yeah.
such an incredible vortex of beautiful energy moving into the Austin
Mm,
area. And I was so delighted to be a part of it. And when we met at that event, I just felt this instant connection with you and this instant spark of
likewise.
we could just talk about anything. So that's why I wanted to have you
Totally.
on the pod.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I think there was like 70 women there. And I remember we kept gravitating towards each other
Yeah. I was
throughout
just like,
the
well,
throughout the
okay,
day.
let's just keep going because
Yeah,
there
right?
is there can be that I think maybe sometimes when people have a certain intention of when they go to events, have
Mhm.
this, and you meet people like this. And I certainly was like this at a time in my life of where you want to make the most of your time at an event
Mhm.
and like meet as many people as you can. And so you kind of
Mhm.
go around with this intention of like having these short, meaningful conversations and exchanging info and then like moving on. And
Yeah.
I definitely was more like that in the past and
Mhm.
was really and it was, and again, it wasn't like those weren't meaningful conversations, but they were driven by
Mm.
this deeper desire to get myself out there as much as possible and connect to as many people as possible with this intention of like, oh, I'm going to grow my list and grow my following and grow
Mm.
my whatever it was I was doing.
Right.
And that has shifted majorly over the last years. I would say probably the last five some odd years of when I go to whether it's a networking type of event or
Mhm.
a party like we were at,
Mhm.
there I just dive deeper
Mhm.
into those interactions and those
Yeah.
conversations. And now when I meet somebody who comes up with that kind of energy of like, oh, I'm going to have this like
Yeah,
short
there's like
little
an
exchange with
agenda.
you. Yeah, and they have this agenda. I'm just like, ooh, I feel that of
Yeah.
okay, they're on a mission today.
I like, how can I support this mission?
Yeah, like okay, we're gonna have this conversation. Here's my digits.
Right. And on
Yeah,
to the next.
yeah. But I love the deeper, meaningful conversations
Mhm.
that can happen even at a networking event, on a business
Totally.
event, and when you I think are more also deep into your own self and your own
Mhm.
soul, then you just gravitate to the right people to have those conversations with.
For sure. Yeah. I'm kind of at the point where I try not to force anything. And if I'm meant to have a connection, it's meant to be there. Obviously, I think there is like uh, you know, giving time and love, like tender love and care into relationships, like not just ignoring it and being passive with like, oh, we'll meet again. But uh yeah, like if I feel a connection, definitely like I'll just allowing it to uh organically come about as similar to like how we met. We met at that event and then I think we were trying to hang out and then it ended up just synchronistically working out with the that pilot, the one like that project that we were both like collaborating or working
Exactly.
on. Yeah.
I know. That was the synchronous story around that is that I produced a TV pilot and Davina was the head caterer that we hired a catering company that was not Davina's company. It was another company. And that's because, the woman who heads up that company is a friend of the couple whose house and property we did this shot this pilot on, and I know her as
Mhm.
well, so we're like, oh yeah, let's use her company, and we did. And then Davina shows up and I'm like, what are you doing here? This is
Yeah.
so cool. And she was subcontracted, right, to
Mhm.
do the actual be the actual on-site chef for that pilot. And so yeah, so we had been trying to get together, trying to make
Mm.
that connection happen. And then the universe was just like, okay, you girls just need to get out of the
Right.
way. We're going to put you together
Right.
for a week in this like intense, intimate environment. And it was so awesome to spend
It
that
was
week with you.
beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were there catering, and
Mhm.
I know that catering and food is such a huge part of your life and who you
Totally.
are. You've been a food blogger for many years,
Mhm.
and I'm so excited for you. You just shared with me before we started recording that things are shifting for you in
Oh,
this
yeah.
space. So tell us a little about this
Constantly.
shift and what's going on.
Yeah. So, well, it's funny going back to the project, the pilot that I chefed for during that week. Because I had a blog, and I still do. It was formerly called the Plant-Based Palette. And that was a bit of it really came about during 2020 when we were all like called to stay home and I was staying home and during like the beginning portion of that and I was just making food and I was focusing on sharing healthy vegan recipes. And then once I got to Austin, because I was in Vegas at the time for a little bit, and then I got to Austin, and I think the blog just allowed me to. I was like, I just want to share my food more in whatever ways. So during that time, I was calling in like just doing more catering stuff and sharing my food off of the online space and into wherever it needed to be, like just physically. I think for me, like I wanted to just I wanted people to gather around my food. I feel like we were like the past couple years or so, it was like so there was so much separation. And I feel like my like what my drive always is just to connect people, and I feel like food is a huge connector of that. And then having come to Austin where everyone was like felt so connected during a time where like kind of a fighting against the disconnect, everyone was connecting so much.
Yes, like more parties, more
Right,
gatherings.
exactly, where which is like which is great because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, cool." I'm like, "This is exactly where I wanna be," and this is like and food is such a connector of people, so, during that time, I was calling in, just physically, like, being face to face, like, connecting, sharing food in that way, um and I was doing this emotional intelligence program around this time. It was like a 5-month program, and a lot of it was around like, what's your vision? And to me, it was basically like 5-month waking ayahuasca ceremony. There was no plant medicine involved, but it felt like that just because we were diving really deep into to our subconscious and going through childhood stuff. And I remember it was getting very clear of like, what is it that I want to envision in my life? And I kept it's a big dream of mine to eventually like live on a food forest, have my own food forest. Um, and I was like, okay, so but like in the present moment, I want to just share food more, especially with the community. And then also the long-term vision is to have a food forest. So because I want to just be more connected to the food that I consume and like the ingredients that I create with. And so it was just like this perfect intersection when I was reconnected to you through that project of food forest abundance. That was like, it was just all of it together, everything that I was calling in at once, sharing my food more. I've never chefed for a set before, and that was new and exciting. While fueling a project that I'm like, that was whole focus was on just showcasing food forests, which is
I
like, this is
know.
perfect.
Well, I
I was like,
totally
this is like,
forgot about
it couldn't be in more alignment to like what it is that my soul was like yearning for and calling in. And so, yeah,
I know, I forgot about that connection that you were calling in food for us into your life, and then all of a sudden you're like
yeah.
on a set
Uh,
with installing a food forest
oh yeah,
at
honestly,
yeah, that
when my friend reached out to me about that, she's like, "Hey, I think you might want to do this project." I was like, she didn't even tell me the details. She's like, "Oh, it's for a set." And I was like, "Cool, I'm always up for a challenge. Let me chef for a such set. I've just been chefing retreats and like gatherings. I was like, let's do this. I didn't even know what the pilot was about until I got the paperwork and the contract. And I was like, food forced abundance. I was like, okay, great. I'm like, may I always just listen to my intuition? Like, it's like I don't need to always know the nitty-gritty details of it. I just trust. Obviously, like with discernment, but I was like, it felt really good, so I'm just gonna keep going with it. And then I was like, of
So
course,
true.
these
Right.
little
And that
nuggets.
just and the discernment is like an energetic discernment, isn't it? It's
Hmm.
not like you are, like you said, forcing anything of like, I am, it's different. And I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's like there is a discernment that comes from feeling. And I guess that's the
Hmm.
best way, rather than mental discernment that can
Right.
feel forced or stressed or controlling. It's like
Mm,
it's a emotional and spiritual discernment, something that you
for sure.
feel, right?
It's
So it's
so
not like
true.
you are just letting like spirit take you, like some,
Yeah.
when I think we talk about the spiritual path and living this way, sometimes for people who aren't in this flow can feel like, or maybe because I was this way, way back when, and I certainly have talked to people who have shared this with me that, it's like so airy fairy is what my dad used to call it.
Mhm.
Woo woo is what a
Yeah.
lot of people call it.
I like to call it lost in the sauce. Some people can get lost in the sauce.
That's great. I love it. And so, I think there's a lot of negative connotation that you're just like
Yeah.
floating aimlessly in space and
Mm,
not in this any type of directed, grounded, um, actionable way. And
mm,
truly, when you're living from this space of being connected to, you're actually connected to more information, more resources,
mhm.
more energetic information that provides an even greater sense of, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do and exactly where to go. And you don't
Right.
have those details like you might have worked out mentally, but you
Mhm.
have a feeling that is greater than any sort of plan that could come
Mhm.
together, right? To give you that
Yeah.
guidance.
Right. Yeah, both have to exist. Like the grounded, actionable steps that take on that is like just that. I feel like first it starts with like that space of just like allowing to receive inspiration and information and like and following your intuition in that sense, and then comes the details of like okay, the mind without getting too muddied up, but like allowing the mind and actionable steps as tools to actually drive whatever that inspiration is coming through. But
Yeah, it's so interesting. You see it happening, right, with a lot of big companies, corporate spaces now that are offering, mindset workshops and bringing in consultants who can talk about the mind body connection. And
mhm,
you see it even at business conferences now. They offer this like mind body kind of section, even if it's not like a spiritual or wellness type of conference. And so even in those business corporate settings,
mhm,
they're starting to bring in what is, um, what's been known for a long time by people within the spiritual space, that it's all one, that
mhm.
all of that is one energy, one thing, one entity, right?
Yeah,
And to close yourself off to any one aspect of self or any
mhm.
one state of being is just limiting.
Totally. Yeah, it's
So
all connected.
yeah. So tell us about how food has been a ways and means for you to connect more to those that more expansive state of being.
Yeah. Well, food to me, I think I said this earlier, but like if I had to narrow down what food is, it's connection. It's literally like connecting ourselves to the earth. It's connecting ourselves to our bodies, our hormones. Then that affects our mind and our spirit and how we go about our days. It connects us to each other. It literally like you put food on the table, everyone gathers. We're literally connected to each other through this experience of food. And this food is going to turn into our cells that becomes ourselves. So it's yeah, food to me, it's like I feel like it's such an important topic because it really does matter what one eats, and it's such a personalized journey as well because everybody's body is different, but and at the same time everybody's also very connected, and how we how we like source our food is also heavily connected to the whole system that connects us all. um, my journey with food, I mean, food has always just been such it's been such a important part of my life. Like I think in most, because I grew up with my dad was the cook in the family. My dad and my grandma, they were like the cooks of the house, and they were also the two most important people in my life. And so a lot of my fondest memories were helping them out in the kitchen, cooking Filipino food. Which again, food also tells a story of culture,
Mhm.
and our human history in ways, and where humans have been, depending on what spices are in different cuisines and dishes. So I spent a lot of time just cooking food in my kitchen with my dad. My dad was like essentially we always would throw these fiestas, like these Filipino fiestas at our house. And he essentially had his own catering company, like voluntarily, like, because it was just so much of a passion of his. Like, and everyone used to say, like, okay, why don't you start a restaurant, all that? But he's like, no, he just did it for the love of it. And he
Oh,
also he also had like recipe books. He was an engineer, so he had like amazing penmanship, and he would just write recipes and like all the Filipino recipes he would create. And he would make copies of it because even all my aunties would be asking him like, how did you make this chicken adobo so good, or how do you make your pancit like this so he would just like would write it out. And so he essentially had his own blog in
yes,
in
he's
a
the
way.
OG
Yeah,
blogger.
exactly. And so yeah, and I feel like I just got a lot of my inspiration from him. And then it kind of what really woke me up to like really taking food a bit more seriously was that everybody in my family had type 2 diabetes or some sort of food related disease. And they always have, like, even just growing, like, just even as a kid, I always knew like majority of my family had type 2 diabetes, including my dad, which he pretty much like he ate fairly healthy. Like Filipino food's not the healthiest, but he ate fairly well. But he worked in an office that like gave him soda every day, and so he was so sure, like he was very sure that he got type 2 diabetes just from drinking soda so often. And I didn't know, like at the time, like when I was younger, I kind of thought diabetes was something that everyone just gets with old age. I just thought like
Mm.
you got wrinkles and
Wow.
diabetes, until I realized it's like this is actually a food related disease. And my uncle, who my uncle was a priest. He was like the priest that named me. I was named after a nun. I grew up super Catholic. So
Mm.
but I was very close with him. I called him Manong. He's my uncle Danny, and he lived out in New Orleans. And there was a period when in I was in school. I was actually in architecture school. I studied interior architecture, so that's actually, it's not like I started off chefing, but I always had that passion for it. But while I was in school during a summer, my I had to go take care of my uncle in New Orleans because he was recovering from a stroke. And a big part of taking care of someone is feeding them. So I was taking him to doctor's appointments and um, making him food and stuff. And I remember his doctor was just very adamant. He's like, he had really bad diabetes, which turned into him having a stroke. And she was like, she's like, you really got to like lock it down with his food. And she recommended, she's like, for the time being, can you just eliminate, obvious is sugar, like eliminate sugar. And she was like, and his cholesterol is really high. So she's like, maybe also eliminate as much like dairy and and just certain types of meats from his diet. So at that time, I was just basically feeding him like chicken and fish, and obviously eliminating all sugars. So it was like pescatarian-ish diet in a way. Yeah, I wasn't cooking very much food, but I was starting to, that actually kind of started my vegan-ish journey, because I was just like starting to learn just so much about food, and kind of as I was cooking for him. And it turned into like, that turned into a summer of I feel like that was like my of a schooling for me in ways. I was like learning just so much about our food system, about food, how it affects our body, so that I can cook for him. But also, it's like he was just out in the hospital, and I was like, I wanted him to still feel like inspired by life, and clearly we got into this mess because he was like obviously enjoyed food and like not the healthiest food. So it became a game for me of like, how can I still create these junk food that he liked while like implementing superfoods in it or sweetening it with monk fruit or stevia, or how can I still make it be enjoyable while supporting his body. So that just became so fun and creative for me. And I was checking his blood sugars every day. I kind of gamified it, and I was watching his health, health get better just through food. Like day, like even in a day, like food can affect how your body works. And we know it by like our energy levels. Like, if you're going to eat something that's, maybe not the best thing for you, you're going to feel that later that day. You're going to be low energy. You're going to maybe go into a food coma. Like food should give you energy. So that was, that was fun for me to play with. And that really did kind of start my whole, vegan. I mean, I was like vegan-ish, and then I became fully vegan 2000, 16, 17. I was like really, really like taking that on. Like it was for health reasons, for environmental reasons. And then also more so for like the compassionate reasons of like factory farming was something I was so wildly against. And like I'm so grateful for that journey. It really served me, and it really got me creative with cooking. I feel like there's this beauty to restrictions, and
Mhm.
like yeah, like I obviously it's like I'm all for like freedom, liberation, all that, but also like there's a time and place for restrictions, and I feel like my vegan journey was so supportive in the sense of teaching me how to eliminate. Like I was like pretty much on an elimination diet as a vegan, and I went through so many different phases of vegan diet. I went through, I was even, there was points I was eating not so healthy vegan stuff, and just all the different ways of being vegan. And then I kind of just landed on, I want to be whole food, plant based. And like what does that mean? And because even you could be vegan and you're still eating like monocropped vegetables, which aren't great. So it's like so that's just been a whole journey I've been on, and I wanted to just share more of a plant-based lifestyle. More so I just wanted to share food and recipes and get people more connected to food and creative in the kitchen with it, which is why I started the blog, The Plant-Based Palette.
Yeah,
um
I love the fact that through the restriction, it sparked your creativity around how am I going to still make this food inspiring,
mhm.
delicious, beautiful, like tempting and tantalizing to eat.
Yeah.
And when I look at your dishes and the things that you've made and the things I've actually eaten of yours that are gorgeous. I mean,
Oh,
so
thank you.
beautiful. They are inspiring to look at, and we eat so much with our eyes, don't we? Like
Mm-hmm.
we are like that. It begins with the eyes, and then
Totally. All
yeah,
the
and we start to like
senses.
digest it with our vision, and then
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like right when food is like right like in front of our face, it's like the digestion process already begins.
yeah,
And it is also a bit of intuition. Like I really truly do believe in intuitive eating. It's like what smells good to you, what feels good to you, what feels good to your body even before you eat it, and like really listening to that. Um and like that kind of leads me to like why I'm not vegan anymore. It's just like very big shift for me. And I think
huge.
yeah, it's interesting because veganism was such a big part of my identity, and I feel like life is compiled of all these phases of like attaching to something, and then letting go of that identity. And I feel like I didn't really see this coming, but I'm like, oh, I thought I'd be vegan forever. And now this is like a whole ego death that's happening of like I'm not vegan. I would say I'm like primarily plant based, but I've started to introduce just expand my palate a bit more. And the reasoning for that, I mean, it took a lot of like mental wrestling with myself to get to this point, and it's a very recent journey. Um, because I've always chefed. Like I've had the opportunity to chef for a lot of gatherings and retreats, and I've never cooked fully vegan. There's only actually been a handful of things I've been asked to chef for that were fully vegan. But I've always, even though I was vegan, I still took it upon, I still took it on to serve animal product, because I knew, I was like, well, if anyone's gonna do it, I know that I trust that I'm gonna source it. I would actually like source it from regenerative farms, and like as being like as intentional as possible of like what where it's coming from. So yeah, that was something I was never against cooking or creating meals with animal product in it. I just personally, that was like not my, it was not my part in alignment for me to eat that. And then as of like recently, like probably the last like 6 months to a year, I'm always just listening to like what is God telling me in every moment. Like what is, I feel like life is constantly in communication with us, so like really lean in and listen to like the stories your friends are telling you, to like what is life just telling you in general, like what are moments that are coming up that are teaching you something, without getting too like swayed. Obviously it's like not listening to what everyone needs to say, like listening to your intuition to it. But it's getting to this point where I was having multiple friends have very serious complications being on like strictly vegan diets. There was somebody in my life that had a type of, he was like raw vegan, and had a type of blood cancer, and and he was, going through so many different doctors and like going on this whole journey of healing himself. And what it was that healed him was actually sourcing like game meat, and implementing that diet, and he was able to reverse it. So, and I don't know, I feel like, maybe the raw diet served him for a time and place, but I feel like like the seasons, like we're constantly changing like the seasons, and to always diversify your what's on your plate depending on what you need on that season, where you are, like actually like where you are in your, on like what land are you living in right now, things like that. So and then I had, yeah, just there was just multiple stories coming to me of friends that were vegan for 11 years that were having certain complications, and
Mm.
I was like, I feel like these are coming to me for a reason. And I'm also really like, I was getting to a point where I was like going through so many cravings. Like I was craving salmon, and I was really fighting that. And I was like overdosing on like chia seeds and flax seeds, like thinking I could replace it. And I do believe that, if people really do want to subscribe to that like fully vegan lifestyle, there is a way to do it. Like, yeah, there is a way you could still get everything you need while yeah, I mean, I think while like listening to what is that's truly calling you to eat. But like, yeah, for me, I was just really craving salmon, so I just allowed myself to like eat some sustainably sourced salmon, and that was like a huge thing for me. And I felt so good in my body. And I was just really just like allowed myself to be like, there's a saying like, don't let your ideology get in the way of your biology. And I think it's like with just food, you just do the best you can, try to source it as best you can, and just really listening to like what it is like that your body is needing, and really take care of it. Like take care of it as like your loved one, because it is your loved one and it's
That's
you.
right.
So yeah, so it's like, if it really, don't ignore it because you're so attached to like this is how it needs to be. Like it's like food is should always just be compassionate, especially with your body, and just really listening, and doing the best steps forward. So yeah, as of recently, I've been eating what depending on my cycle. And I say I'm primarily plant-based, but it's like if I am getting the cravings of like some sort of animal product, I listen to that, and I don't just eat whatever. I'm like so grateful for the vegan, that being vegan, because it was like, because it really did make me not just eat whatever. It's like I had to get really selective of, because it was limiting even going out to eat where to eat. And now it's like I won't just eat any meat. I'm just like, I will, if I'm gonna eat it, it's like I want to know who it's coming from, where it's coming from, and I want to like work with it myself, or trust that, or I'm going to a place where they're full of integrity.
Hmm.
with their food. So
Yeah.
it's
And
been
I
great.
mean, with food being literally energy, in that it's giving us caloric energy, but then
Hmm.
also that it holds its own energy, because these things were alive at one
Totally.
point, right? It's a plant,
Right.
it's an animal. It was alive, and
Hmm.
it holds its own energy, energetic signature, and we're taking that on and
Yeah.
in. And so to be conscious of that is,
Right.
it's just a, I mean, it's a great way to eat in general, to be conscious
Right.
of whatever energetic exchange we're having with anything, but
Right.
especially something that you're taking in and bringing in
For
to your body in
sure.
such an intimate way.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's so beautiful that that whole journey brought you to all that you
Hmm.
experience food now differently because of your vegan journey. And I love that you're just listening to uh, what you need in the moment, and calling in and listening to, those are all important things just for any choices that we make,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Whether it's food, or what path we're going to take regarding anything. It's
Hmm.
listening from within, but then also listening to that wider set of information coming from without, like those stories of your friends, and going, ooh, these are really pinging this kind of like this curiosity, but even deeper than that, probably like
Hmm.
a alarm bell to some degree.
Right.
It's like, oh, it triggered you enough to
Hmm.
listen to it. And
Right.
the more tuned in we can get to self and source, the
Hmm.
more we can make these decisions that are the right decisions for ourselves in every moment. And that's going to
Totally.
change over
Right.
time,
Yeah.
right? As we flow.
Yeah. That's the only, yeah, the only constant is change. And
Yeah.
just allowing that.
Yeah.
That too.
And allowing, it's really only that ego mind that's going to prevent us from making those changes, because you get, like you were
Right.
saying, so over identified with
Oh,
something, like,
there
oh
was
no, but I'm a
definitely
vegan, I'm the plant-based palate,
totally.
like,
Oh
how
my
can
God,
I?
there was so much heroism in that. Now, like in retrospect, which is like, yeah, there. I've definitely. It's like I'm so grateful for it, and at the same time, I'm like, wow, there was so much self righteousness in me around this, and and yeah, and I guess I mean that's how I needed to operate at that time, but um, yeah, it feels so much more liberating to just like allow myself to be a little more flexible with my diet. I'm really like trying to let go of all types of like labels around food, and a friend was supporting me through that because he also had been vegan, and one like he was actually the first friend or person to give me a he gave me like a microdose of filet mignon, and that was like the first like red meat that I had consumed. And it was funny because I still was like only eating fish and eggs, and it was at a event that we were like co-chefing for. So it's like I know where we got this meat, all this, and as he was cooking it, he was just very in tune with me, and that he like cut me the tiniest little piece of this red meat. It was like this big, like the size of a quarter, and he put on my plate. And because you could feel, he's like, I feel like you really want this. I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm good. And then he's like, okay, well, it's here. You don't have to eat it, but if you want to, it's there for you. You know that we've sourced it from a really good place. You know how much love I put into it. Like he literally marinated the day before. Like I like watched the whole process of it, and and as he was cooking it, we were like watching it cooking. He's like, look, it's breathing. It's so alive. There's so much like life in it and vitality, and we were just kind of giving that honor and reverence to this animal. And then anyways, I had my plate and I had the tiny bit of the microdose of meat on it, and I like sat with that, and I was like, I can't believe it, because it was like I thought my boundaries were just like fish. I thought that was going to be that my edge was just like fish, eggs, and that I like ate this microdose of filet mignon. And I swear it took me back to my dad's cooking.
Mm,
And I like my dad had passed away. He's so And I feel like a lot of me chefing was almost taking on some of his yeah, just some of his gifts and being able to share it more like in this physical realm. And it took me back to his cooking, and I was like, it's just that reminder that food is such an emotional activity, and such an emotional like food is emotional, right? And it connected me back to my dad, back to memories with him. And yeah, and just I had so much honor and respect for like that animal and everybody that was a part of that process to allow me to allow like all of us to be nourished and have whatever other experiences every individual needed to have with that meal.
Mm, that's so beautiful. And the observation of the food as it was cooking, as that meat was cooking, to see it breathing or to see the energetic signature of it still
Yeah.
as it's is so profound to me. I don't remember who I was talking to recently or where I heard this, but it was um I think within a specific culture, it's probably multiple cultures like this of where they don't um, cremate bodies, or
Hmm.
if they do, it is after a certain period of time because the the soul is leaving the body, not just at the moment of death, but over
Hmm.
a period of time. And in order for that soul to
Mm.
re-enter into those realms, it
Yeah.
requires a longer, human time than just like, oh, there's no more life the way we measure it
Yeah.
anymore. That means that entity is dead.
Hmm.
From a soul perspective, according to this information, it's the soul is still on this journey, leaving
Mm.
the
Yeah.
physical plane and leaving this body. And if you cremate the body to I can't believe we're going here right then and now with
Yeah.
but it's I'm not trying to relate, eating meat to body cremation, but it just remind me of this that
Yeah.
um because we're all one in that sense, right? This flesh, these cells, this physical form is the same, us and a cow, right? So
Totally.
um and if we believe that soul is this energetic connection to God and to all
Hmm.
that is, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. It's in all things, right?
Yeah.
It's in this microphone, it's in this body,
Hmm.
it makes up all things. So for us, the story from this information or from this culture is that the soul, if you cremate the body, you are creating a rift, or it's creating difficulty for that soul to go back and re-enter
Mm.
into those planes of
Yeah.
existence before the time is right. It's still
Yeah.
kind of tethered and it's
Hmm.
leaving it. Like I picture it as just
Yeah.
this
It's still
like,
transitioning.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
it's still connected and it's leaving. And so if you destroy the body too soon, that can be a problem. So I
Interesting.
wonder, there's
Yeah.
probably
Mm.
some cultures that think about that when it comes to the food
Yeah.
and how it's hunted and then rested and then
Hmm.
cooked. And but no matter what, culturally we think of spirit and source and soul within a body,
Hmm.
you still know that there's energy there, that
Right.
there is an energy in this flesh
For
that we are
sure.
then consuming and alchemizing ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's like going back to that thing. It's like we are all one, and like to give it as the most reverence for that, and for taking on that energy for this what was a living being, and having been able to now feed many people, and just like like always being in that state of respect for that. um and that was like a reminder too, when I was going from being like transitioning from vegan to not vegan, and my friend that had given me that experience of the meat that connected me to my dad, was like, he was like, just reminding me that he's like, nothing is separate, like we are all one, and that animal is you. And not saying that's, so one thing was like, yeah, not saying we need to be killing a bunch of animals, like that's, I'm like, this fact, like the factory farming is something I'm like, I have a really hard time with, and for good reason. There's so many reasons, or so many reasons why it just doesn't make sense, like for our planet and for how the animals are raised. But it's like, if we can, like if there's like these farmers and have like this relationship with these animals and giving them good lives, and then they're able to like roam freely on their land, and also them just being on the land is supporting the soil. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like that circle of life. uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh my gosh, so such a beautiful to have that experience, that full circle, to either hunt your own food or raise animals and go through the process
Yeah,
of killing them, processing them, cooking them
totally.
is, you know,
It,
it sounds barbaric to,
yeah.
certainly to many vegans, I'm sure,
Hmm.
but also to even other people who eat meat, but that
Yeah.
don't do that. It
It,
sounds like, oh, how could you? I mean,
right.
I've had so many conversations with people who are like, oh, I could never kill an animal. I'm like, you're eating an animal. Like, how could you? You know, it's what kind of
Yeah. Well,
disconnect is that?
yeah, everything has a karmic exchange. Like it's like, yeah, and like it's like whether I don't know if I can get to that point of hunting. I have a respect for people that do that, and I love hearing stories of people that have, their sacred hunting experiences. It's hard for me to imagine myself doing that, but again, I'm like, I'm at a space where I'm like, okay, I can never say never anymore. Like I'm open to whatever needs to come. Uh but I think it's like, there, as I said, like it's like with food, especially consuming animal product, like there is such a big karmic exchange. So it's like I think it's like it's our responsibility to do that extra work, like that extra work of how you're gonna, of how you like put it on your plate. So whether that's, the little bit of like finding out, like you're like getting to know your farmers, or like, or actually going to the farmers market, not just like conveniently just going to the store and picking something up. Like of course I'm not against grocery stores. It's like I'll still get some things from grocery stores here and there, but like I think like when it comes to especially things like meat, like it takes like that extra work, like whether you're going to hunt it or actually go out and know that it's coming from like a reliable source.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, most of us live in communities now, or there's certainly more and more of this opportunity these days of, you know, if you're not growing it yourself, there's farmers, producers nearby that are,
Right.
where they're going to come to the farmers market and sell their products. There's also
Right.
websites now and a
Yeah,
lot of these apps that are connecting farmers together to sell food to
totally.
you, and they're shipping far, like from
Yes.
far away.
CSA bags. Yeah, there's always these CSA bags where you could literally get like a bag of organic produce from farmers directly, like directly sent to you, right on your doorstep. Like it doesn't
Yeah,
get more convenient than that.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, and the difference is that you know that farm where it came from, whereas if you buy
Hmm.
something in the store, you don't necessarily know where it was produced. If it says the brand name, but that doesn't tell
Hmm.
you much, right? Because they probably source, most big food companies source from all over the place, and then it
Yeah.
all just kind of gets, you know, homogenized into one look. But
Hmm.
when you're buying directly from a farm, and we just moved to an agri-hood, so there's an organic farm
That's
on our
amazing.
property.
That's
So
amazing.
it's growing right here, and there's is a feeling of connection to that food that's different, not just because you know where it comes from and you
Hmm.
can trust it more, but
Yeah,
you're also, it connects you to the land more energetically,
totally.
right? Because it's
Yeah.
just like where people will say, oh, you know, certainly, I don't know if everyone's heard this, but if you eat local honey from your area, honey that's produced in your area, those bees are pollinating from the plants that are within that area, so that then if you eat that honey, it can help you with your allergies, or help you not
Totally.
have allergic reactions to the stuff that's around you,
Mhm.
because it's all connected and it's so,
Exactly.
right.
Well, that's what I'm
So
saying too, is like it's important to form your diet also around where you are, like where
yeah,
like I feel like it's a bit of like where's your ancestry and where are you from? Like where are you
totally.
currently, and like and eating, because also just for environmental reasons as well too. You don't want to be shipping things so far away. Like it's like there's food here. So like,
Mhm.
and getting to know, connecting to the land that you're on energetically as well. And it's
Totally. I know
medicine, as you're saying too. It's like, and if you do that, it's like food truly is medicine.
that's right. Yeah, and you can get rid of all of the other medicines that you might need because you are getting nourished, and then therefore your body is doing what it's designed to do, which is to heal. So you
Mhm.
can heal once you've got the right, you're putting in the right components for our cells and for our energetic
Right.
structure to be able to fight things off,
Mhm.
repair, do all the work that we need to do, that we're designed to do, right? We
Yeah.
don't, it's not like we need the medicines. We just need to create the right environment.
Mhm. Right.
And food, obviously, is
Totally.
the foundation of all that.
Right. And also like and it's also so healing to like even just create with the food, like that creative practice of it. That's why I'm always like I think why what started this food blog or what I know started this food blog was just encouraging people to just get more connected to food, get in the kitchen, like be fluid with it, like like have it just be a creative process. Like you're an artist making this food, this temporary art that soon becomes you and whoever it is that you're sharing this food with. So, and I
Mm,
think
I,
that process in and of itself is healing.
oh my
I think.
gosh, yes. And such a lost art for many people. So many
Mhm.
people are sort of slaves to the convenience packaged food
Totally.
industry,
Yeah.
and they aren't cooking for themselves. We actually walked by a recycling bin the other night, and my son looked in, and he said, "Oh, this tells you a lot about these people." And we were like, "Oh, why?" Well, we're like, "What? What's in there?" And he's like, Coke bottles and boxes,
Yeah.
food boxes."
Oh my
And
goodness. So
we were like,
true.
yeah, some people don't ever cook for themselves. They just are
Mhm.
reheating things
Yeah.
out of a box.
Mhm.
And we cook. My husband is the main chef, really the most. He does mostly all of our cooking here,
Mhm.
and my son now. So my son's been cooking with
Oh,
him
I love
for
that.
3-ish years, I would
Mhm.
say, and learning about not only food, but obviously skills, cooking skills, and learning to connect to food in that way, which is really just such
Mm.
a beautiful thing to watch and witness and to eat. I
Yeah,
get to experience, the love that also comes from both my
totally.
husband and son making food for us.
It's the
And
secret
they,
ingredient. Yes, the
it
love.
is, it's a
It's
secret
key.
sauce.
It's key. It's that, yeah.
It's so true. That's why so many people are like, "Oh, it just is not like as good as my mom or my dad," or right?
Mhm.
Because there is
And
energy of love, and even also potentially like sweat and things that go
mm,
like into the food
right, the
that
oils.
changes the
Right.
flavors.
It's so
I
true.
bake,
That
so I get my hands in, food in that way, and I like to bake, and that's kind of where as far as food goes, spend more of my
mhm,
time. But there is, it's a huge difference in how something comes out and tastes, and also probably to a person, right? It's going to taste.
mhm.
We all have a different experience of a food, how that hits our palate, how that actually tastes to us, and how that feels to us, and our
Totally.
experiences are all unique.
I've literally had like a dessert order, like a huge dessert order that I was supposed to share for a gathering, and I was supposed to prep for it the night before, or I was going to prep for it 2 days before, but I was going through such an emotional hardship during that time that I was like,
Mm.
I have to just like process this right now and then actually go start the prepping because I was like, I just don't want that energy in it. Like I was like, I need to move through this, and then because I don't want that energy going into this food, and so I was like, I that's how important I feel like it is. It's like the energy that you're putting into the food, but and it was also a thing where during I like processed everything I needed to do, still feeling little remnants of it, but then while I was baking pretty much all day that the day before the event was like also so healing to just also transmute it. I'm like, okay, now I'm just like putting like I'm just reclaiming back that love and putting it into this art form and just getting
Mm.
lost in the flow of that.
That's so
So,
beautiful. And what a form of self love. You mentioned it earlier, of self compassion to cook for oneself, to feed
Totally.
yourself, to actually
Yes.
nourish yourself.
Mhm.
We talk a lot about, and there's a lot of self-love talk in both spiritual circles and wellness circles and coaching circles and, self-development circles
Mhm.
where that advice is thrown around a lot. Like, oh, it's about self-love and it's about
Mm.
uh, doing things that are loving for oneself. And that's one of probably the most foundational ways that you
For
could do that.
sure. Yeah, definitely. I always every time I take on a new project, whether it's like privately for anytime that there's some sort of food project, I always ask like I got to know like what's the intention of this gathering? What is the intention of the food being in there? Like what give me a prayer, a mantra. Sometimes people give me paragraphs. I'm like, I wanna know
Mm.
what it is that like because we're going to energetically fuel with this food. So I want to know what that prayer is. And then anyone that's working with the food, I always ask, obviously let them know what the intention is of the gathering. And then I also ask them to set their own individual intentions. So it's like, what is your individual intention for your life this season or this week, this season? What do you want to see for your life in the world? And so we're like combining all of those like prayers together and just getting in that state of infusing that energy as we're creating co-creating the meal
Mm.
that we're all going to consume, and that comes back into us and then leads us into how we operate and move forward into the world from there.
So beautiful. What a beautiful and, uh, consciously creating, consciously connecting way of working together and collaborating
Totally.
with one each other, with
Yeah.
each other. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful. So these days, now that you've transformed your blog into, now it's divinabalazo.com, and you are
Mhm.
working in sharing food of different forms. Now is probably some meat, as well as the all of the beautiful plant-based dishes that you make. And are you going to be offering that through catering as well? Or where else are you headed?
Yeah. I still do select catering projects, but I'm mostly just gonna focus on sharing more recipes, like also on the blog now that I've kind of expanded outside of plant-based. And my whole thing is everybody gets to eat at the table, just making sure it's like high quality, it's clean, colorful, and it will just make you feel good, make the body feel good, and also good for the environment at whole. So yeah, check out more recipes on divinabalazo.com, and around the Austin area, also open to yeah, wherever food is needed.
Yeah, I would say
Sharing
wherever
whatever.
beautiful, conscious, clean, and connected food is needed. this,
Hmm.
this is your gal. This is
Yeah.
your person here, because, like I said, I've eaten your food and the energy of love is so present. It's delicious. It's beautiful. It's
Oh, thank you.
inspiring. And I know that the recipes you've put together will be too for people. And I love that you are passing on the love of food and the love of that, what it really means, which is that foundational, love and compassion and connection.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and everything that you're doing. People can connect to you through all the links in the show notes. Anything you want to leave people with before we sign off today?
I it's this Japanese word that I always like to say right before I eat. It's itadakimasu. And it's like basically just giving grace. And like for me, it's like giving thanks to everything involved that has like led us here today, and especially for in front of food, like everything that was involved, from the sun to the soil to the farmers to, if you're going to the grocery store clerks, to everybody, everyone, to you being in the kitchen and your family and your friends. That's like all putting their ideas and energy into making that meal, and that like becomes you. So that's a word I want to leave is itadakimasu. And
Ikitakimasu.
yeah.
Mm, awesome.
Thank you for having